Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Still Chill podcast with me, Rose, and my co-host Raha.
Oh,
how are you doing today, Raha?
That was really good.
Yeah.
I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
A bit overwhelmed lately.
Oh, yeah.
Just with world news and with life and work. But we're pushing through. I don't want to lie. Do you know what I mean?
It's the truth. I feel like everyone's just pushing through.
It's just that awkward time of year for me. I always find, like, November especially is just a bit of a weird, like, transitional period where we're, like, moving into, like, different seasons, and it's not December, so it's not Christmas just yet. It's just, I'm just, like, existing. How are you, Rose?
Same.
Yeah.
I'm taking 2 weeks off.
Yeah, you are, which
I'm very
so
looking
happy for you.
forward. Very looking forward. But basically, this episode is a bit different, isn't it?
Yeah.
We, it's like an emergency episode.
I get, yeah.
Like, we hadn't planned for it, and basically, me and Raha haven't shut up for 24 hours. Like, we've just been in a constant conversation.
Yep.
Without a break. One, because we watched A Man Named Scott.
Yeah. The Kid Cudi documentary.
Yes. And then today, the Astroworld tragedy.
Yeah.
And we got lost, didn't we?
Yeah, we went down an absolute rabbit hole.
So we've read all the accounts so far. We've seen all of the information, and we wanted to bring it to the podcast because there are so many things and so many intersections we thought were relevant and, like, important to discuss.
Definitely. Like, we just found ourselves just talking the whole...
Literally,
like, the
we
whole
haven't
of today, we have literally been watching videos, reading people's account, like, just, we've gone down...
Just yabba, yabba, yabba.
Yabba, 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 yabba.
But yeah, so for those of you who don't know, we're going to provide as much context as possible, given the information that we've got. Basically, what happened was, and this is from BBC News, Travis Scott, a rapper, the father of Kylie Jenner's children, hosts an annual festival called Astroworld. It's been going since 2018. There are guests, normal lineup. He headlines at the end of it, right? This year, Apple live streamed and sponsored the event. So the whole thing was filmed.
Yeah.
There was about 50,000 people there. And it lasted for 75 minutes. And the issue is that during those 75 minutes, the crowd was just in chaos.
Yeah.
And it ended with 8 people sadly dead, and they were between the ages of 14 and 27. 11 cardiac arrests, 300 injured. Now, the internet...
300 injured?
Yeah.
That's more than I thought.
And like, injured sounds so mellow, doesn't it? We're talking, like, broken ankles, broken arms, nerve damage. And then people were injected with syringes as well. So that's what they're, like... investigating now. There was a security guard. He was trying to help someone. He felt a prick in his neck and then passed out. And then when they, resuscitated isn't the right word. When he came to, they located the prick on his neck.
Wow, okay.
And they were giving people overdose medication.
Yeah.
But it was specifically for opioids. It's called Narcan. So they're thinking that stuff might have been laced with fentanyl.
Right. Oh, for God's sake.
Yeah.
What?
But we're going to get into it, right?
Okay.
We'll get into it. So, the internet's, like, up in arms.
Yes.
Everyone's obviously devastated.
Yeah. And traumatised.
Actually, before we continue, I do also want to say that we're not trying to, like, jump on a tragedy and, like, jump on a hype.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just that there is so much in regards to mental health and how we're channeling rage and releasing it, and, like, the culture and everything, that it needs to be discussed, and we haven't seen it be discussed before. So that's why we're talking about it. So the issue was that before it started, Travis Scott had tweeted saying, we're still sneaking the wild ones in. So essentially an invitation. The promo video for Astroworld, right, was like people jumping fences, breaking down barriers, which happened on the day. Mm-hmm. We saw that, and it's because he invited it. It's kind of like...
And it's like the wild ones. What are we implying here? Like the language that's being used even.
Which, by the way, his Twitter has been purged. Like, you will not find those tweets now. But, of course, people screenshot.
But it's like do you know how irresponsible that is? I know I sound like, oh, that's so irresponsible to write that tweet. But, like, hello? I just think, especially with the wild ones, like when you're using that kind of language, it's just encouraging people. It's not. It's like, oh, the people that have already bought my tickets, they're not the wild ones. You know, they're the tame, nice ones. Thank you for. And you would be pissed. You would be pissed if you had bought a ticket and you were there and you saw that tweet. Like, if your favorite artist had just tweeted, "The wild ones can sneak in." I'd be fuming. I'd be like, come on, I've literally paid to come here.
Yeah.
And there's people breaking down barriers.
But that's also the culture of his fan base, isn't it? Like, they're the ragers, like, it's chaotic. Every single fan account is like, this
and
is
I get
like
it. It's his brand, isn't it? Let's say. Like, essentially, that's what's getting people excited.
Yeah. But my thing is, we'll get into it, but it's a reflection of people's internal agony.
Yeah.
And it's been spun to be cool, and what it's ended up in is this tragedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it really is a tragedy because we're like, oh, and it's funny, isn't it, how desensitized people are on social media, because we're just throwing figures about, like, oh, 8 people dead, this has happened, da, da, da. But ultimately, if you really think about it, like, they were children. Yeah. A lot of them.
So young.
Like, they got dropped off.
Yeah. Their parents were like, oh, they've just gone to Astroworld.
The excitement, the build-up of that, and then for it to end in this way. And if you've got the capacity, there is so much footage online from people in the crowd, and you can't deny it. Like, they are being crushed.
It's terrifying. Like, this feeling that I've had all day just watching these videos, it's... And it's because you and I have gone to so many gigs, and we know what it's like to feel like crushed in a crowd. And it's the worst feeling. And of those videos of just people crying and screaming for help, and like at the top of their lungs, and it's horrifying to watch. And there's so many. Yeah. Like there wasn't just one video we saw. There was so many. Yeah.
And like, so one of the problems was that he tweeted.
Yeah.
The other issue was that...
So, yeah, loads of people end up going to the festival that don't have tickets, and it's just completely overcrowded.
Yeah. And then I read a statement from a nurse who was present, and she basically said that she passed out. She'd been to loads of Travis Scott concerts before. Like, you know the deal, you know what you're getting yourself into, but nothing had ever been this bad.
Yeah.
And she passed out, and when she woke up, she was just surrounded by people whose eyes were, like, rolled into the back of their heads, bleeding from their nose and mouth. Wow. And she's checking people's pulses. Security are like, please help us. They haven't got enough people. And then she writes, I'm going to just read it because... more accurate. She says, he takes me to the part of the crowd where I see 3 bodies sprawled out and people who I assume were medical staff doing CPR. I immediately see that there is not enough medics for this, so I relieve one medic of CPR. I asked where the ambu bag is, where the AED is, where the stretcher and ambulance is, and they said essentially there is none. There is one ambu bag, one stretcher and one AED for 3, now 4 people who are pulseless and blue. People from the crowd were trying to help. Teenagers are doing CPR trying to help, but they're doing it incorrectly. Then I'm seeing people do CPR on people who still have a pulse because nobody has done a pulse check.
Oh my God.
It was an absolute shit show. And there's so many accounts like this.
I read so many of those.
And it's horrific to think of. But something that did surprise me when we were doing all of this research, because we were hot this morning, weren't we? We were, I was raging.
Because he was carrying on, like, there was people chanting, saying, stop the show. Like, there's videos of him which looks like he's directly looking at somebody who's literally dead and being carried out. Like, it just looks terrifying. It would look like someone's worst nightmare.
Yeah, and that's the other part of it, isn't it? That everything was like
demonic
on fire.
Yeah,
that's neither here or there.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing was that what we saw initially this morning was his video. I don't even want to say an apology video because it's not an apology, is it?
Yeah. Or on his Instagram.
Yeah, it's a story. Him and Kylie have published stories being like, we're devastated, we're heartbroken. And that's about as far as it's gone so far.
Yeah.
And people are just really frustrated. And I guess it's such a new thing. It's something that we haven't necessarily experienced before. So what surprised me was when I looked into it and I was like, oh, there's so many cases of this.
Which I was so surprised about as well.
So often. This happens so often. It's unbelievable.
What specifically do you mean?
Crowd crushing,
right,
overcrowding, just, And one of the cases that really surprised me was Gwen Stefani.
Yeah.
So Gwen Stefani in 2016 did a gig and she's like, oh, I can't see the people in the back. Like, come to the front.
Yeah.
And people start rushing to the front.
Which is just like Gwen.
Yeah.
Gwen. I just feel like it's common sense, especially as a performer. You can see the crowd in front of you. You know how crowd behaviour typically works, especially when you've done that many shows. Like, when did you say this was? 2010?
2016.
2016! And you're telling people to come to the front. And I get it. You want your fans to have a good time. But it's so unsafe. It's just...
Well, someone got seriously injured.
Yeah.
And they sued. And when she went to trial... Well, she's going to trial, basically. Because the judge said that she could be held liable.
Yeah.
Because... had she not said that, those injuries wouldn't have occurred.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're a person of influence and you literally influence a whole crowd. So you need to know, you know? And then another tragedy that happened was in Germany, in Duisburg, the Love Parade, and that was in 2010. 21 people died.
Wow.
And then somewhere where this happens quite frequently, actually, is the Hajj or Hajj. And in 2015, 2,177 people were crushed.
That's so
because they're all reaching towards the same thing. And that's what happens. So it's not actually that you're in a crowd. It's that the crowd is moving at the same time towards something and there's no space to move.
Yeah, and that's... Yeah, exactly. Right? So the crowd is not to blame. It's like a current, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll go into that. But yeah, what I wanted to end on, because this was really interesting to me, was that 183 people died in Victoria Hall in 1883, obviously in the UK. And after that, a law was passed that entertainment venues have to be equipped with crash bar latches that open outwards.
Yeah,
so you know the fire exit.
They're always there.
Yeah, at the back of the venue. That's why. To avoid stuff like this from happening.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it, weren't we? Because me and Rohan, in our teenage years, we probably went to every single gig you can think of.
Yeah.
Like, we were big.
Every month.
Festival culture,
gig,
all of it.
Yeah.
And actually, in the UK, like, the security is great. And the paramedics are great.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine something like this happening here.
No, neither. And, of course, at festivals and stuff, things happen. Things have happened in the UK for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Hillsborough.
Yeah. No, I'm saying, like, at gigs and festivals, that stuff does happen. It has happened. But from our experience, it's always been fine.
Safe.
It's been safe.
So, what actually happened in that crowd?
So from the stuff that I saw on social media and Instagram especially, people were just getting sucked under, essentially. Like, there was just no space. Where people's feet was where they stayed. That's how they described it.
Yeah.
And people were just getting crushed. Like, people's chests were getting crushed. They couldn't breathe. It was just hot air. and as soon as there would be like a hole or a gap, you would just get sucked, you'd get swooped in, and you would get trampled on. That would be it. Once you're on the floor, like, that would be it. People would start piling on top of each other, and yeah, that was essentially how they died, by getting trampled on, which is just the most horrific way I can imagine dying. Like, and the music is still going, and people around are still dancing and like having a good time, but it just looked like chaos from the videos. Yeah,
and what you were just describing about people getting sucked in, that's actually called progressive crowd collapse.
Oh, okay. So,
yeah, and there's actually science and psychology and physics behind this, right? So, essentially, what the researchers have found is there can only be 4 people per square meter,
right,
for them to still have choice to move.
Okay.
Right? If you go up to 6, that's enough to create a current, right?
Yeah.
So 6 people in a square meter is too many people. That means the crowd is at a really high risk of losing control.
Yeah.
Essentially what happens is people stand so close together that one person falls, and that's the only space that exists.
Yeah.
So everything gets sucked into that space. So then people start falling, and it's like a domino effect.
Yeah,
and they don't mean to.
exactly.
They literally get sucked into that energy field.
It is like, I know from when we've been to gigs, as soon as it's like too packed to the point where you can't move, if one thing moves, you're going with that crowd. Like, you have no control over that. Yeah.
And the other thing is crowd crushing, which is what you were talking about, people's chests.
Yeah.
People can't breathe. You know, imagine you're like under 5'5".
And we were always lucky. We're tall. And we were always, that was the one thing we always said every time we were at a gig. We were like, oh, we're so lucky we're tall.
Yeah, definitely. It's horrific. It's horrendous. And it was happening at so many locations at the same time, simultaneously, at this place. And there are so many people online defending, being like, oh, you would never be able to see that from, it's dark and people's phone lights are on. No. Those people have never been to a gig or stood on a stage and performed in front of people.
Because you would see...
You can see that. No, it's not you would. You can see that. You can see the commotion.
Let's say it's not even Travis Scott, but everybody else who was up there, like this, and this is what I don't understand. Was it just the carelessness? Like, you're able to see that when people are chanting "Stop the show" and screaming for help. There was one video that I saw that was just the sound, and it was just the sound of people screaming for help, and I just can't understand how nobody saw that.
Yeah.
Or nobody thought it was important enough to stop.
Yeah. And he did stop, though. Yes. And I'll give him that.
I saw one video.
I'll give him a bit.
Yeah. Someone passed out, right?
Yeah. And I think he stopped a few times. He wasn't like... But, I don't know, like, it still, something feels really, like, sinister about it.
Yeah. Definitely. And that's why I can't, like, it's very easy to hold him. I mean, we'll go on to this.
Holding him accountable.
Yeah.
But, wow, we're kind of moving on to that now. So essentially, with progressive crowd collapse and crowd crushing, the researchers are saying, stop calling it a stampede, because it's not. People are moving in the same motion at the same time on purpose, and they're not moving freely. They're like, it's not in their control.
Yeah.
Okay? And then there are some social psychologists who say, okay, but that crowd is also made up of individual personalities, and that also determines how things go.
Yeah, and then you've got to look at crowd behaviour.
Yeah.
Like de-individuation, like we learn in psychology. De-individuation is basically a concept, like mainly social psychology, it's basically the loss of awareness when you're in a crowd. And you can kind of your behaviour can become anonymous because you're part of this crowd, because so many people will be doing it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a loss of self-awareness. It's a... Like, you conveniently put it to the side, I feel.
Yeah.
a little more like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then the whole argument of how people's values and their morality and stuff is lost in a crowd.
Yes.
Because if people can switch so easily because you're just around more people, can we hold people to that standard? Do you know what? Does that make sense? Like, can
we expect people to be human and humane?
Basically, like, is that the truth of it? Is that what people are really like?
I think... Oh, I don't know.
Because the other thing is, in those videos, like, people are dancing on the ambulance cars.
But that's what all the accounts were saying. They were like...
one person dying, and then whoever's next to the person dying is dancing and singing and having a good time. It's such a strange, like...
One of the accounts was like, I was in a tent surrounded by people, and Drake comes on, and more people are just getting passed out. Like, they're getting, like, crowd surfed out of the crowd because people are just losing their mind over Drake. And this was the next point I wanted to go on to, is celebrity worship. Because people say this only happened because as soon as he came on stage, everyone just started pushing forward.
Yeah. So what's the appeal? Like, what's that appealing that makes people react in that way? You know what I mean? Like, why do people have that desire to get that close to it? Because it's not just this concert. It's the stuff at the Hajj, like you said, like even religious stuff, sports. Like, why are people so desperate to get closer to this thing?
Yeah,
it's so symbolic because it's physical.
Yeah.
When you're watching physical, that.
Yeah. Exactly. And we really, like, the thing that prompted this conversation was how in detail we were talking about Kid Cudi.
Yeah.
And what he did for hip hop and what that's turned into now. And the reason that's relevant is because Travis Scott takes his name from Scott Mescudi, which is Kid Cudi. So it's his idol, it's his biggest inspiration. But actually, they couldn't be more different, even though they're classed under the same umbrella.
Yeah, for sure.
And I wanted to go into the nuance of that. So... When did you find out about Kid Cudi? Let's start there. Which, by the way, the documentary is 11 out of 10.
Yeah, no, we really enjoyed it. We were being such nerds when we were watching it. It was so good.
If Kid Cudi was instrumental in your life, if he carried you through your teenage years, like, I urge you to watch it, please.
Yeah, it was brilliant. So when was the first time? I was in high school, 13, 14, I want to say.
No, you were younger than that, because I was 15.
Oh, okay, so I would have been 12. Wow. Oh my God. God, that's so weird to think. Yeah, Man on the Moon. You obviously introduced me to it. And, I used to just bang that album every day to school and back. It was like my favourite thing.
And what was the appeal?
It was just brand new. It was rap and it was hip hop, but it was alternative because he was talking about his feelings, but not necessarily his deep feelings. It was just like a thought track, you know? There was so much that I resonated with, and we always obviously grew up listening to hip hop and rap. But there was always that missing for me, that, like, obviously I didn't grow up in the hood. I can't always resonate with what I listen to. I just love the music. I love the sound, right?
Yeah.
But this was like hitting in every way. We loved Kid Cudi, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. It gave, like, a voice to something that I hadn't even processed within myself.
Yeah.
And at the time I was like, oh wow, like, he's so depressed and, like, he's so this. And it was like, I think that I think it put me on the path that I am on today, because I was like, wow, like, I really feel that, but I really didn't think that I understood it Whereas now in hindsight, I can be like, wow, I think I was really depressed at the time. Whereas at the time, I was just
encapsulated that perfect, like, because we were saying that, weren't we? Not even just with the lyrics necessarily. It was just the sound, the humming, the Kid Cudi's like it put it into music. He translated it into music perfectly.
Yes, and the whole documentary is about all of his albums, and he's always been that way, that it's always been very raw, like, just raw about where he is at in his life at that time. And throughout the documentary, you could see so many fans who'd, like, tattooed him on them, being like, you saved my life.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, you saved my life. And he was like, I had this weight on my shoulder, like, I'm saving people's lives, but I'm deeply unhappy. And that's what people connected to, this, like, it wasn't darkness, because that's what it became.
No, I feel like it was more sadness. It was more like a
melancholy.
I would say definitely.
And that's like
what more of a sorrow. It wasn't like it wasn't like dark. It was,
which is what it became eventually.
Definitely. Yeah.
But all of this to say that he really made a big change within the hip-hop scene, because it wasn't about political rebellion anymore. It was about individual rebellion as well. So it was about what you do on the individual level. And then it became very, like, punk rock, right? And so many people took inspiration from that, Travis Scott included. Yeah. And that Lonely Boy Rager persona has been taken on by so many new age rappers.
Yeah, 100%.
But they're not doing it justice, because they're not articulating themselves about what's happening for them. It's just a brand. It's just an aesthetic now.
Yeah, it's an aesthetic. Exactly. It's an aesthetic.
It's just the aesthetic without, like, without outpouring, without the expression.
Without the reality of it, without someone expressing their truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And still talking about, like, the worst parts of hip-hop, which is the promotion of drug culture, misogynoir, like, all of that stuff. But you're putting it back to Kid Cudi. So that's what frustrated me. And that's what I wanted to talk about, because we're in an age where mainstream hip-hop is that, and it's definitely inspired by Kid Cudi.
Yes.
But what they're doing is they're commodifying something that brought people so much relief, and now it's bringing people darkness and rage. And I was telling you earlier, like, punk is a form of self-expression.
Yeah.
So you wear, you dress, you speak, rebellion, essentially. Whereas this fan base, or not just Travis's fan base, because there are other artists that are included.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
They don't have that release.
Because they don't express themselves.
No, because they follow a hypebeast culture.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what? Consumerism.
Yeah. It's meaningless. It's empty. It's void.
Yeah. Yeah, it's void. Like that massive hole in his concert that behind his stage. It's a void.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. For sure. When you're not expressing yourself fully, you're as your whole self through your art, through your clothes, in every way that you can, it's like, I'm just going to take this and just use it.
Yeah.
Like, you're adopting something as a part of an aesthetic.
Yeah.
And it's not true to you, and it's not true. And even if it is true, like you said before, you're not doing it justice, because you're choosing to withhold so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that. Like, I feel like the reason people love Kid Cudi so much is because I think we all feel like we have been inside of his mind.
Yeah.
But not in like I've seen inside of his mind. No, like literally like a stream of just thoughts.
Yeah, because even
they
when
don't
we
even
were
make sense
watching it yesterday,
half the time.
We were saying how there are so many songs that we felt like we don't relate to at all lyrically, but it felt like I was able to take a trip through his mind and see what he was experiencing, and that's true artistry to me.
Yeah, and it was all about his expression, right?
Yeah.
So going back to Travis Scott, Kid Cudi is known as Mr. Rager.
Yeah.
Right? Since Man on the Moon 2. Travis Scott's fan base, they're called the Ragers.
Yeah.
Okay? Now...
it's just like, you're flipping it too. This is the other thing. Kid Cudi, like, even if we're just looking at it, like, metaphorically, whatever. Kid Cudi's like, I'm Mr. Rager. Tell me where you go. Or it's his alter ego, or whoever he's referring to, right? When you're talking about your fan base as the Ragers...
Yeah.
How are you expecting them to behave?
Well, obviously, but that's the point, isn't it? It's like the chaos
is
part of the branding.
Is what I'm saying. Like, I feel like that's...
Oh, yeah.
But you're projecting onto your fans.
Yeah.
Like, moshing, raging, all of that stuff isn't new.
Yeah.
It's the context in which you're doing it in. So you have bands like Linkin Park, for example. Obviously, they're going to have mosh pits, right? But one of the things was always that when someone fell down... They'd go, what do we do when someone falls down? And everyone says, pick them back up, right? And that's like... That's the vibe of the show. Like, you're helpful. You're being helpful.
Well, you're creating a safe space.
It's exactly. It has to be a safe space.
Yeah.
And in regards to that, obviously they can see when people have fallen down.
Yeah.
Adele can see, Niall can see, Freddie Mercury could see. There are so many artists, so much footage that shows people... Sorry, just my dog. That shows people stopping their show because of people fainting or starting fights in the crowd, swaying, etc. So, yeah, that argument that he couldn't see what was happening...
Yeah,
it's a no from me.
It's a no from me too.
And then...
Yeah, and then...
And that brings me on to my next point about his history, because that's what we looked at then, right? There was one video, Raha, you showed me, Tammy.
Yeah, so, because when you came into my room this morning and we were talking about it, I was like, I saw a video of him years ago. I feel like it was like 2017, maybe 2016, where he starts crowd surfing and he just like leaves the crowd and he starts accusing somebody in the crowd of stealing his shoe. And... he's just fuming on stage, like, you stole my fucking shoe, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, fuck him up.
Yeah,
like,
and
getting the crowd to
beat him up.
and to beat this guy up, and throws his mic. And I remember after watching that, all those years ago, just being like, what have I just seen?
How can you...
That ain't right.
How can you encourage a crowd to beat up one person over... one shoe that you could probably buy 100,000 times over.
Literally. And who's to say someone was trying to steal your shoe? You're crowd surfing. Like, and also, why? Of course somebody would probably try and steal your shoe. Right? And imagine he's just falsely accused someone. Imagine his shoe is just loose and someone grabbed it because they're trying, whatever. And you're... Yeah.
Fuming. He was fuming. And... that was horrible, but there was an even more horrific story, which in 2017, he pled guilty to public disorder because he was at a gig and someone was trying to jump off the balcony.
Yeah.
And he was just like, go on, do it. Don't be scared. Go on, go for it. Like, egging this guy on to jump off the balcony, and he did. And then moments later, a random person got thrown off the 3rd-story balcony and ended up paralysed. And they are devastated by what happened.
Well, of course.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine? And it just, that specific image made me think of when we went to see Odd Future. I can't remember the year. It was like 2012 or something like that. Yeah.
I don't know, but I was like 15. Oh my God, it was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I was in... Yeah.
What? Sorry, that's crazy. That's just blown my mind. Yeah, so 10 years ago.
That was single-handedly the worst gig of my life.
Did you see it? Would you say?
Oh, it was horrific.
Yeah. Well, I got pulled out of the crowd, didn't I?
And I would even say that Odd Future are probably... also, like, the inspiration behind this kind of culture.
Without a doubt. I mean, I expected it. We expected it. We knew that they had mosh pits and whatnot, so it wasn't like I didn't know what I was walking into. But it was just so packed in there. There were so many people. people were swinging off balconies, condoms were being thrown about. Obviously, people were getting violent with each other everywhere, all around. It was just wild.
But I mean, it was like bad vibes. Like the
vibe was bad. The vibe was angry.
Horrific.
It was hostile. We were right at the front. I remember, and this guy is just shouting the most horrific stuff in my ear. And just, I don't even want to repeat literally what he was saying because it was so disgusting. And I ended up hitting him.
Yeah, you punched him.
Just, and then it got to a point where I felt I was being crushed. Yeah. And I just felt like I couldn't breathe, and the security had to just pull me out.
Yeah, we all got pulled out. It was the only time I've ever had to be pulled out.
Yeah, same. The only time.
Fuck you. Like, literally, I was so angry.
But
because I honestly felt like...
Once I got pulled out, I felt fine. I felt safe. There was plenty of space. There was water. I actually bumped into my friend randomly.
Yeah.
So I was fine. And...
like, it was handled well.
It was handled well, exactly. So when we were looking at the stuff today... I just was like, I honestly felt like I was going to tear up because I was like, I can't imagine being in that situation that we were in at Odd Future and not being able to get out. Because you just want to get out.
There was a researcher who said, it's stupid when people say people die from panic. They're not dying from panic. They're panicking because they're dying. They know they're dying.
They know they're dying. And every single account that I read today where people were telling their stories... almost all of them said that they saw the fear in people's eyes.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like 75 minutes of just fight or flight.
Yeah.
Do you know how traumatic that is for people? And then have a half-assed apology and a half-assed, I'm devastated.
Yeah.
It's outrageous. People need to be held accountable.
Yeah.
This is absolutely unbelievable.
And that's like, I don't think he's solely to blame.
No.
The medics weren't right, the security wasn't right, whoever was organising whatever had done a terrible job, clearly. It's how you rectify these things as well. That's what matters. And his video just didn't do it. Like, Roddy Ricch is already talking about, donating all of his money to the families. And this guy hasn't even there wasn't a real apology. Your PR team have written something on your notes app.
Yeah. The reason I wanted to talk about it so early on, because I did consider maybe we should watch things unravel, but I find it fascinating, or I'm really curious about observing myself react to news on social media and the way things unfold and all of the information that's thrown in there.
Yeah.
What can I trust? What's reliable? What is my reaction? Because this morning I was like, he needs to go. Oh, I don't believe in jail. But I was like, he needs to be held accountable. Whereas now I'm just like, I don't actually know who needs to be held accountable. And so much has unraveled. Yeah. And like, you read more accounts and your perception changes. And I think we are in an age where we form an opinion so quickly and then we cling to it because we formed it so early on.
Definitely.
And
yeah, we were cussing him out this morning.
Yeah.
But then throughout the day, the more stuff that's come out, I'm like, there were so many people.
Yeah.
Yes, this is his festival. Yes,
I mean, of course,
I'm sure he saw things.
He should have
apology.
He should have stopped.
Shit, 100%.
But is he the only person?
Absolutely not. Yeah, no, definitely not.
Absolutely not. What does a 29-year-old know about running a festival?
He's there, yeah.
I wanted to talk about that as well. Just the way that we engage with and react to online news, world news, the way it impacts our day. It's consumed our whole day, literally.
Yeah, but you should know and you should be aware of these things because imagine you're a parent just dropping your kid off at a festival. You have no idea. No parent would have ever imagined that something like this would have happened.
Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to mention about this new age hip hop movement because it is in the title. And I know we've touched on it, but I think it's a reflection or a projection of the sadness that people, but also specifically men, feel in the midst of this, like, capitalistic dystopia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, where do they want to go with their life, but they want to have the best things, but they don't know how to get it. It's hypebeast culture is essentially the same thing as grind culture, as hustle culture. It falls under the same umbrella. Mm-hmm. It's, you can make it too. You can have nothing and you can make it.
Yeah.
And we all have mental health issues, but we're not going to address them. We'll just take drugs.
Yes.
And distract ourselves.
Yeah. Which is what most people are doing. They're just channeling that in different ways. But I feel like this way in particular is so much more damaging and more common than people.
But that's what I want to talk about. Like, what is it about, like, for example, the Odd Future setting or, like, the Travis Scott setting, those kind of individuals, like, acting in that way? Because, like we said, there were people diving off police cars and, like, still filming, and all the accounts are, like, I was literally being trampled and people are dancing on top of me. Like, not everyone was being crushed. There were people having a great time. How can you? How?
Yeah.
Like, are we just so desensitized? Are we so dissociated? Like,
but then I also think that we don't even know if Travis was on drugs. Do you know what I mean? You don't know how high people are.
Yeah.
You don't know and if people are bringing in syringes and drugging people, you don't know what else people are bringing in. Like,
or even what they're voluntarily taking.
Exactly. And the things that are being repressed and the things that they've wanted to just let go of, like, all of that stuff is just seeping out.
Yeah.
People are just there to release. Release.
Exactly. And that's what I mean. It's like it's all of this emptiness, this void that everyone is feeling, like, going about their day-to-day lives, and then at the first chance,
letting loose. Yeah, and it turns into chaos.
Yeah. God.
But it's encouraged.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
It's
encouraged. It's like the wild ones sneak in, the rages, let's turn up, yes.
Yeah, because he kept saying, you know what, like, we're here to do? Like, I want to see the ground shake. People are like, help. And he's like, I want to see the ground shake.
Yeah.
And,
they want people want the carnage. Like, it's like you said, his promotional video had all of that stuff in. That's what they're going for.
I'm pretty sure he said something before about, like, if there's no injury, like, it wasn't a real mosh pit or something like that.
Yeah.
But that's what
yeah. And it's like, fine, okay, have your little mosh pit, have you come in with a couple bruises. You know what I mean? But people are getting killed. Like, there's
we're talking cardiac arrests. Like, we're talking broken bones. Like, no. And the other thing is, people are adamant that there's way more than 8 people. Like,
every that's the other thing. Not everything. Most things that I read said that it's definitely more than 8.
Yeah, another reason
and things are being covered. And the other thing about Apple streaming it, like, where's all of that footage? Like, they filmed the entire thing from beginning to end.
And then you have all the people online saying that there was so much satanic symbolism, and, like, you can't miss it.
And the thing is, do you know what? Like, people will sit here and laugh and be like, oh, the conspiracy theorists, all Illuminati stuff and satanic stuff, like, laughing at these people. And it's like, you can laugh, but I wouldn't dispute what people think about that stuff.
Yeah, dismiss it.
And dismiss it, because I think it's valid.
Yeah. It's right there.
It's right there. Like, I'm not saying that I personally
I'm not saying the connections that they're making are the right connections.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it.
But there is some funky stuff.
Yeah.
And for people to actually say they felt like they were in actual hell, they couldn't breathe, it was hot, they were surrounded by fire, like, people had fear in their eyes, scrambling to get to the surface. Like, it sounds horrendous.
Yeah.
Horrendous. But one of the reasons I wanted to also do this episode so early is because we're talking about someone who has an extreme amount of influence and connections and power and capital. And I'd be really curious to see how this unfolds moving forward.
I don't think it's gonna... I think this will blow over, if I'm honest.
How can
I think we'll see his grills on the gram in like
2 months.
A month. Yeah. But lawsuits will be...
left, right, and centre.
Yeah.
You said earlier, you were like, you don't know whose kids were in that crowd.
No.
Yeah.
50,000 people. Like, that is... But then again, you've got Kris Jenner on your side. You don't know. You can make that stuff go away if you need to. Yeah, you know.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm really surprised that, like, I know all the big news outlets have reported on it, but it's not like the outrage is coming from the people, the public. It's not so much coming from the media as much. It's not just being very like matter of fact, isn't it?
Yeah.
When really any other time, like, it's a black rapper.
Yeah, and it's a huge... It's yeah.
It would have been way bigger. Yeah. And I think
the way that he's responded actually has been... I might be wrong, but I feel like has maybe been strategic as well. By downplaying it, you're not taking...
Yeah, exactly.
...that much responsibility. And it's like, well, I'm not then.
By just popping it on your story, it's like, oh my God, this is so awful that this happened at my... Almost responding to it as if what happened at Ariana Grande's concert in Manchester, which is completely different.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They're almost being put at the same scale.
Yes.
But it's completely different.
But Ariana actually had nothing to do with... Yeah.
Like, what happened at Travis Scott's concert was completely avoidable.
Yes.
And it was in his hands to control that situation.
Yeah.
What happened at Ariana Grande's concert was completely...
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
So yeah, I'd be curious to see how it unfolds. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you're stuck in a crowd, here's what you do, okay? What happens is you'll feel a current, and with that current, the crowd surges, okay? Move forward with that surge, like let that current take you, but simultaneous try and move to the side, so move sideways. As the current is going forward, move sideways. And eventually you will find yourself out of like the depth of the current. And hopefully if you're at a gig or you're in a market or you're somewhere, you find yourself to the outer corners and you can find some shelter and refuge. So go with the surge and move sideways. And then the other thing is observe how you respond to news in this moment in time. Watch what your initial reactions are, how tightly you're clinging to your opinions.
Yeah.
Whether you're keeping an open mind and allowing other perspectives as well before making a final decision.
Yeah.
To have an awareness and be mindful that so much of this stuff is planted to influence us. So there are media companies literally trying to control the narrative.
Yeah.
In one way or another. Like, it could be either way. Mm-hmm. And the third thing is monitor how much you're engaging with it, because honestly, we've been looking at it all day and this feeling in my chest has literally just been there the whole day.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the capacity for it right now, like...
You don't have to engage with it.
You don't have to.
Which is a privilege to an extent. You gotta...
Nah. When I saw how many of these incidents... have happened, let's say even over the last 20 years, since the year 2000, how many have happened, I thought all of this stuff has happened and I had no awareness of it.
Yeah.
And I get it, it's privilege, but I also think it's privilege, but the way in which we've moved and the way in which we're exposed to world news in this day and age, I think is way beyond our capacity.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. So you have to regulate it for yourself.
Yeah, if you want to sustain
your well-being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your activism, essentially. If you're trying to fight against like this whole industry, like this I hate to say it, but this is as a result of capitalism.
Yeah.
It's profit over humanity.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
In so many regards, like, and we don't know exactly what's happened, but it's clear in it.
Because he also said that they'd already sold out.
Yeah, he invited strangers to just come.
No, not even strangers. They sold out, and then he managed to sell more tickets, and then he wrote that tweet as well.
Oh.
Yeah. So you do you know what I mean? Because yeah.
Horrendous. Yeah. Our condolences with all of the families that have been affected. I'm sure it's more than 8. And I hope you get the justice that you deserve.
Yeah, 100%.
And
be safe out there, everyone.
Please, it's still COVID as well. Please, look after yourselves. For sure. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
No, I don't want to leave it on that note. That's
so depressing.
Boo. What's your song of the week? I feel like
I'm triggered. I'm actually triggered.
Sorry, but in the length of this episode, I feel like I've caught cold. Do I sound like I've got a cold all of a sudden?
You do sound bunged up.
What were you saying? You're triggered.
Yeah, but then I just go back to the videos. I just don't want to talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like traditional, old school hip-hop heads and rappers are like, oh, what is with this new generation, like Tekashi 6ix9ine, all of these guys with like this multicolored stuff on, and then do you know what I mean, like they get
a little peep, a little pump, little dark,
literally, right? But it's like,
oh, we're old, isn't it?
Yeah, no, we are old, and we're gonna sound old, but the truth is that it's just, that's what the industry is pushing.
Yeah.
That it doesn't mean that conscious rappers aren't around, that doesn't exist. True. There are artists who are who are spreading truth and happiness and sadness and vulnerability and all of the good stuff. They're just not getting the bag. They're not being recognized for it because that's not what sells.
Yeah.
And it's all of these other rappers who are making a come up, and everyone's like, "Where's hip hop going?
Why do you think it doesn't sell?" Happening? I'll tell you why I don't think it sells. I don't think it sells because there is such a culture around like Lonely Boy Rap. That's what I'm going to call it now. Lonely Boy Rap, where it involves drugs, it involves clothes, it involves all of this like material stuff.
Yeah.
Right? That everyone is trying to attain. And it keeps those industries going. So exactly. It's like, it's a moneymaker. They work
hand in hand as well. Everyone's like that. All the capitalists be like, thank you.
The same way like boy bands appeal to young teenage girls, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. Say Travis Scott, that video, everyone's like, he's acting, his apology isn't sincere, like this is like the most fake, just as GCSE drama, right? Yeah. What if he, along with so many other people, is so emotionally disconnected from himself that he doesn't even know how to access those feelings in order to show them. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you turn it on for people? It's, again, I think it's a reflection of the times that we're living in.
Yeah.
And it's messed up. Like, that's what's messed up. Like, at the core of it, it's what's messed up. What's happened is a tragedy, but I think there are so many layers to what's happened and to what we're uplifting in this day and age that need to be addressed.
Yeah. It's, what are we celebrating?
Yeah.
And what are we giving the time of day? But it's all... Yeah. It's difficult, though. Because we're human beings.
Exactly.
And our nature is our nature. We have desires. We have things that we want to be fulfilled. Like, if somebody is dangling something in front of you, you're going to go for that thing. We're not that...
Nah, that's Western culture.
Of course it's Western culture. But that's what we're living in. That's what we're referring to, right?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, should we just accept that as this is how it is, so we just need to accept it for what it is? Because Eastern culture, like Far Eastern culture, is all about detachment and being aware of your desires and knowing that they are fleeting, and that craving and desires and attachment is the thing that leads to suffering.
Yeah, exactly. But
so can we not just be like,
out here yet? So it's like, this is what we're living in, but it's not sustainable.
No, it's not sustainable at all.
No. It leads to this. It leads to it leads to Astroworld. Literally.
Yes, and I think we'll leave it there.
Yeah. We're gonna get a bit too
heated. So what's your song of the week?
Oh God, really? We're gonna do
we're gonna do song of the week. One.
My song of the week is...
I actually don't know.
No, neither.
What's going to be Kid Cudi?
Yeah. My song of the week... Oh, God, now I've got to pick my favourite Kid Cudi song. Wait, I will.
I was going to do a Kid Cudi song.
No, we can both do a Kid Cudi song.
There's enough songs in there.
Oh, it's so hard.
No.
Yeah, I want that to be my favourite, but it's not.
Yeah. No.
Actually, no. My favourite is Don't Play This Song.
No,
my favourite.
No, that's rude.
No, my favourite is...
My favourite is Soundtrack to My Life, but only because I feel like it's been the most... Like, that at the time, I was just like, oh my God.
Sky Might Fall might be my favourite.
Yeah, I feel that. I have to say, Pursuit of Happiness.
I know, but that's like a...
It's a classic.
That's a classic. That doesn't count. That's not just like a song.
That's like that. Wow. It's wow. It's very wow. No, I'm going to say...
No, sorry. I like Don't Play This Song. Don't you dare tell me that it's not my favourite. When it's one of them. The sound, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening.
You. Please let us know what you think. Actually,
do you like this kind of emergency spontaneous episode, or are we a bit too all over the place?
Oh, you mean the episode?
Yeah.
No,
what if they're like, oh my God, why are they talking about Travis Scott? They're going to say, why are they talking about Travis Scott of all people? Of all disasters and tragedies, this is what they've chosen to speak about. But
it's just taken a lot of...
Heavy on our heart, heavy on our mind, and wanted to use this as a release. And also... Heartbreaks and Breakup episode coming to you
next
this week.
Yes.
Double whammy.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy your day. Goodbye.